everyone. I'm glad you've come to my presentation. Within these 45 minutes, I would like to encourage you to look at the APEX plugins and APEX components from a different point of view. My name is Bartosz Ostrowski, and I'm APEX developer for 5 years. My journey with APEX started in 2012 when I've joined the Pretius company. 3 years ago, I've started contributing APEX community with my own plugin, very first one. Recently, I was honored with the title of the Member of the Month, December 2016, at APEX World for my last 3 plugins. And that's why I want to share some knowledge with you. But okay, it's enough about me. I would like to tell you some story about what is the motivation for me to use plugins in commercial projects. So if you have any questions about the demo in the last chapter of the presentation, please keep them for the end. So let's proceed. So my motivation is the success, because we all want to achieve success. It doesn't matter whether we are speaking about the personal or professional life, but we all want to succeed. And on this conference, we have different groups of people for whom the achieving success is a different concept. So we have Oracle database administrators for whom the success might mean well-designed and optimized database. We have PLSQL developers who want to use the best practices, document the code in the good way, or just design the application logic. And of course, we have Oracle APEX developers, and I am the APEX developer. And let me define the measure of success from my point of view. And from my point of view, the measure of success is the client's satisfaction. Why it's so important? Because I know that happy client will come back with the new projects. And the good relationship and agreement with the client result in new projects, which is success of the company we are working for. And of course, it's resulting in our own success. So the client satisfaction could be defined as a fulfilling his requirements, if we are able to provide the application he's asking for. Whether the application maintained will be as low as possible. If we are able to produce the application in a short period of time, as he's asking for. And of course, the client is interested in nice graphic user interface, and he wants his end users to have a good experience while interacting with the application. So the answer for client satisfaction in most points, like the bullets on the slide, is APEX. And when I tell the new client the APEX is a great rapid application development tool, he usually reacts with a smile like, okay, I have heard it before. But when we show him the sample application in APEX, he's getting really excited and he's willing to cooperate. And we, APEX developers, know that we are having a lot of ready-to-use components. We can create various types of reports within minutes, and we can provide a lot of them. Since APEX 5.1, we can create very nice, responsive, and beautiful charts. We can provide a lot of forms, very complex one, with complex rules on them, I mean the authorization rules. And APEX is really a flexible tool. And we are saying that to the client that it's awesome to use APEX. But the problem is APEX can't solve everything for us outside of the box. So we know that clients sometimes have custom requirements. They are accustomed with well-designed applications like Facebook, Google products. So they want the application to be the same. They want the form elements to be very natural to use, with a lot of functionalities. They want the users to interact with the application in a flexible way. They want the application to have a file interface for uploading them, like they have in the Google Drive, for example, just dragging and dropping the files into the application. And of course, they want the application to be more responsive, like omit the situation when the page is reloading and the end user is waiting for page to be loaded. And sometimes I face the requirement that client doesn't like the master detail reports because they are leaving the page. They are switching from the headers to the details, so they wanted to do something else. And of course, we can provide them the details of the report in dialog page, so we are on the same page, but clients wanted something else. And because of custom requirements, we need to think whether the APEX is capable of doing everything we are wanting to do for the client. And we know that APEX is changing all the time. The difference between the APEX 4 and 5 was huge. We got the universal theme, which is beautiful, full of ready-to-use components. But should we really rely on the APEX roadmap? So should we? Because we know that there is a lot of changes ahead of us. Joel already told us what is the roadmap for APEX. We know that APEX promises a lot of new functionalities, but the problem is whether the client requirements are met on this roadmap. So the second problem is also that we don't know when the exactly new APEX will be released. For example, when APEX 5.1 was released before the Christmas, I was like, okay, I have to reconsider the list of the plugins I will be speaking about on the conference. The worst is that the client might not want to wait for the new APEX release. And even if he's willing to wait for new release and for new components, he might have problem with the IT department that might not be willing to upgrade Oracle or the APEX itself. So, in my opinion, the answer, should we rely only on the APEX roadmap, is not really, because we can do it ourselves. We can produce our own JavaScript, our own cascading style sheets. We can build up the new functionality from this, and that might be the answer. But the problem is whether we are solving the more abstract problem, because even if we produce the solution for the client requirement, we are not ready to face the same requirement in different projects. I mean that we are not sure whether our solution will be reusable, so we have to think a bit in more abstract way. Of course, you are not the front-end developers, or maybe you are, but you might not know the front-end. Maybe you don't know how to do it, and maybe you don't have time to do it because it would cost a lot of time to learn about the front-end, about building the new components. So here comes the Oracle APEX plugins. The Oracle APEX team already foreseen this problem. I mean, they implemented a great tool to extend the APEX itself with new components. And the core about the plugins is that they are, first of all, free to use. Most of them are released under MIT license, so we are not being charged for using them in commercial projects. Many of the good plugins on our market are the implementation of the well-tested jQuery plugins. So there were a lot of people looking into the code, and they are trying to fix every issue they face. So the plugins that implement jQuery plugins are the best one, probably. And of course, they are ready to use. The only thing we have to do is just to download the file, import it into the application, and use them just outside of the box like the other native components. The next thing is that plugins are with the open code. We can look into the plugin and consider whether we are satisfied with the implementation, because of course there are quality of code concerns and the security one. So we can inspect it ourselves and decide whether it's worth using or not. And the other good thing about Reku plugins is that we have a really nice community members that are really willing to help us solving problems. They are giving us hints about the plugins or how to solve the particular issue. And the last point about the plugins, that we have a really large collection of plugins. At Apex World, we have around 100 plugins. At APEX-Plugin.com, we have much more plugins to be downloaded. And of course, we have Oracle.com website where we have pretty old plugins, but still they are. So we are really ready to use those components somehow outside of the box. So I want to show you some cases where I have used plugins to solve some requirements of the clients. So the first example is about doing a better user experience using plugins. And for this scenario, I have used 3 plugins. First, the Select 2 by Nick, and 2 of mine, Apex Date Range and Help Text Tooltip. So the example is based on a very well-known form for searching rooms in particular city and like booking the hotel and stuff. So in live demo, we have 2 examples of implementation of the form using only native components of Apex and using the plugins. So the first thing we have to solve in this particular example is that we have a really big list of value containing cities around the world, and they are aggregated by the country. So first of all, Apex is not capable of rendering such a field with so many rows. This list of value contains around 90,000 rows, so Apex won't render it correctly, it will break. So first of all, we have to create the pre-filtering, we have to do a cascading fields that are connected. So firstly, we have to select the country we are looking for. So let's say we are searching for the room in Germany. And then we are picking the city that was already refreshed by the country. So let's say it's Berlin. And then, of course, we are picking the dates. And using native date pickers, it looks like this. We are just picking the dates one by one. And sometimes the end user might be concerning about the purpose of the field. So he's checking the help text that was provided by the developer. So in native component, it's being displayed in dialog. So let's see how it could look like when we use the plugins. So the first one is Select 2 plugin, which is really nice. First of all, he's solving the problem with the big love data because we are just lazy loading the data on the fly. So in this particular configuration, we require at least 3 letters to be put into the field. So we are searching for Berlin, and we have a lot of results, but we want to make it a bit smaller. So we are writing, Germany. We are filtering by the country, and the list is much shorter. So we are picking the destination city, and then there is a plugin used to pick the range of dates. So in this particular situation, it looks like this. I believe it's a bit better than the native one. So the end user is checking whether, or maybe he's searching for different date. He can pick up from the date picker. He already see the range, or maybe the developers foreseen the probably interesting date. So the developer produced some quick picks with ready-to-use date range. So we can choose, like, for example, Apex Connect. And we're already in the middle, so the yesterday date was already canceled. And when the user wants to check the help for the field, he might end up with the tooltip presenting the same help text that was used in the Apex component, Apex item. So let's see how is the implementation of those plugins. And I will open the application builder for this. So here's the page that you have seen on the screen. And first of all, we have the Select To plugin. And its configuration is rather simple, because we are just picking, like in every plugin, we are just picking the options that was already implemented by the developer. So in this particular situation, I have configured it as a single value select list. We have other options to use, of course. I have limited it to filter data only after the 3 letters are already inserted into the field. With the multi-word search, which means that I'm giving the few words and the plugin is searching for the matching rows. So that's why I write in firstly the Berlin, and I had a lot of results. And after the space, I provided the name of the country. So it was already filtered at the end. And the very important thing is lazy loading. It means that the plugin is loading data on the fly. So we are not fetching all the data from the database. And the last thing worth considering in this particular example is extra options that we could extend the jQuery plugin, because it's the jQuery plugin. So I wrote the small sorter function just to sort the data after fetching from the database. And of course, we are providing the list of value as always with the select list fields. So it's not so complicated. Just like this, we are having the city name. In the brackets, we have the country name. And if there is a subdivision name, we are providing it also. So that's the Select To plugin. The next one is the date range of mine. And this plugin works like he can use the one field only and 2 separate fields. So in this example, I have chosen to use 2 separate Apex items, so I can hold in the session both dates separately. And it requires only the second field to be text field. So I'm just pointing that we'll be using the other Apex item. And of course, we are picking up the options of the plugin. So we have some settings like auto apply. So it means if you want to select the date just right after clicking the date or not. We can change the calendar with more options, like I did with the quick picks. And that's a very interesting option of this plugin because it's using moment library, JavaScript library, which allows us to do operations and manipulate the date. So configuring the quick picks you have seen on the screen, like Apex Connect dates, was only defined or the static dates, like Apex Connect right here. So I've just fixed the values. Or it might be very dynamic, considering today's date. So we can add some days or months or weeks, and we can create the range of dates. So with a little of knowledge about moment library, which is well described on the internet, we can produce really nice date pickers with quick picks. And the last plugin in this example was the help text plugin. And it's running on the page load event. And the only thing you have to configure, at least, is point where the elements are. I mean, it's searching for the element that contains help text, and we can just provide the region in which we want to bind the items with the plugin. So in this particular situation, it's the region of using plugins from the example. And of course, we have the options of the plugin, like we can choose the position of the tooltip. We could align the tooltip to the Apex item, its label, or just the button. And we can configure more stuff like what happens when we click the button itself, or we can just use the hover functionality or focus on the Apex item. So, like going through the form with the tab key will provide tooltip on each field without clicking the button. So it's quite nice to have such plugins. And of course, you are free to use them. But let's go to the next example. And next example is about inserting files into our application. The client wanted to upload multiple files using drag and drop method. And after this, he wanted to be able to preview the content of the Excel files. So for this case scenario, I've used two plugins. The first one is the Drop Zone by Daniel. He was speaking just in this room probably 1 hour before. And the second plugin is Excel to Collection. Pretty old and could be found at APEX-Plugin.com. And the live demo of it is very similar to the previous one. We have the implementation in using native components, and we have implementation using the plugins. So client wanted to upload multiple files, and we can provide him such solution like creating a lot of file items in our application. But the problem is that the end user have to choose each file separately. And even if he choose them, he have to submit the page. So only after this, he has the files in the application ready to use. So using the Drop Zone plugin, we are able to provide drag and drop functionality. So I will just grab the files from my desktop. So we can just drop them on the region, and they are being uploaded into application in the meantime. And when we bind the event of the drop zone that all files have been uploaded, we can refresh automatically the region that holds presents the files being uploaded. So the other requirement of the client was to preview the content of the file. So Excel to Collection is a really great plugin, pretty old, but still very good. It can load the content of the file into the collection, so we can produce the ready-to-read report from the file. Of course, it's not good to use it with the really big files, but when the client wants this functionality just to add some exceptions, like uploading files with manual data with 100 rows, it's working really nice. So we can preview the CS file and the Excel files also. It's a great tool. So when it comes to implementation, again, let me switch to Apex Builder. First of all, we have the Drop Zone plugin, which is configured to upload files into the collection in our session. We can, of course, provide the table in our database, but right now it's the collection. And we have a lot of options that we can configure, and we can block the files we don't want to be uploaded into the application. We can provide the time between the files being uploaded. There is a lot of stuff, and the good thing about the plugin is that it's well documented, and still it's, again, the implementation of the jQuery plugin, so it's really nice, worth trying. And the second plugin, I have to switch to the model page, so give me a second. The second plugin, the Excel to Collection, normally is used on the process of submit the page, because the plugin Excel to Collection needs the name of the file that was uploaded into Apex table that holds uploaded files. But in this particular situation, I've made the small process that grabs the file from the collection, creates the unique name using the timestamp and the file name, and I'm just transferring the file from collection to the table that is being used by the Excel to Collection. So at the end, we just need to provide the name for the plugin, and the plugin do the job, loading the file to collection. So that's the implementation of this example. The next one is about, yeah? Yeah, of course. Just give me a second, I will clear the collection for you, so it will be clear. So again, let me search for the files. Desktop. So, ready?
Yes, I'm ready.
Yeah, cool. So I'm starting. So the files have been uploaded. Yeah. The next example, just give me a second. Yeah. The next example is using the very simple plugin that is hosted on the Oracle.com. It's the timer plugin, and I use it to show the progress of the process running in the background. So live demo is looking like this. We have the report with files already waiting to be saved in the application. And I want to show the end user that something is going on in the background. So when I hit the Save All Files button, the AJAX call was made to inform the database that we are starting the process. And the timer plugin is used to fetch the data in some time interval. So I can produce the message on the GUI, like it was changing in the alert region, the color, the message, and the icon. And I could just refresh the report. It's a very handy plugin. It's, of course, can be used for much more stuff like refreshing the content of the other regions. And the implementation is really simple. Because first of all, we need to just start the timer. And we only have to provide the information that we are adding new timer. We need to give it a name and provide the time when it will expire. And we can also provide information whether it should be run only once or infinite times until we remove the timer. So this is the example with infinite execution of the timer. And when timer expire, I've created the dynamic action that is bound to timer expired event. I'm doing again the AJAX just to fetch the information from the database. Here's a lot of JavaScript, but don't mind it. I just wrote it to make it work with the GUI. But the important thing is that when I fetch the information that job is complete, I want to stop the timer. So I'm just doing the custom event in Apex, stop job timer. And on doing this, of course, the dynamic action is set to the custom stop job timer. I'm just removing the timer. So we don't have to write our custom JavaScript to hold the information about the set timeout. I mean, you know what I mean, I believe. So it's very simple and very easy to use plugin. And yeah, let's switch to next example. Next example is about doing the application without submitting the forms. So clients usually want this functionality because of the Facebook, for example. But in this particular case scenario, I wanted to show other of my plugins that is used to show the notification in Apex way, in Apex-like way. So for this case scenario, again, I've provided the form, which allows me to add the new rows to the EMP table. So we have the form based on collection, on the report, and we have the report holding the information about the data in the table. So first of all, we want to show the information to the end user that he can't insert the empty row. So we are just embedding the notification within the page without reloading it. So we want to add the new employee. Let's say it will be Jack. And let's say he will be manager under the President King. He started today. He will earn $3,000. And let's say I want to add like this. Of course I can't because I didn't fulfill all fields. And again, we have the message embedded into the page. But let's say the commission will be 0 and he will be working at accounting department. So when the row is added, again, we can embed it, the notification within the report. Or if we want, we can switch the plugin. Of course, that's the only demo. The implementation is about choosing the type of notification. But we can add the new worker and have the notification like Apex usually display the notification. So it all depends on our requirement. So again, let's see the implementation. I've created the dynamic action holding the information about how the notification is being displayed. I'm doing this on the custom event because in the background of the demo, I'm doing the Ajax to inform the database that I'm inserting the new row. And when I succeed with this, I'm just executing, triggering the custom event. So the plugin know when to implement the notification. And as always, the complexity of the plugin is really small because we are just informing the Apex where we want to put the notification newly created, what is the type of the notification, how to display it. It could be floating or inline, like embedded in the region. And of course, we have some options of the plugin. We can merge the notification with the existing one. And it looks like this. Let me show you. When we add multiple workers, oh, sorry, I want to switch to inline. So when we are adding a lot of new rows, the notification finds that they are previous and just merging them together. But let's get back to the Apex builder. And we have a lot of options, right? Like where to show on the top of the GUI of the notification, how long it should stay on the GUI, what is the removing methods, etc., etc. But the core of the plugin is that how we are providing the message for the plugin. In success message, I'm just using the message from the database that the worker was added. But I can switch to the, let's see the example on warning notification, where I'm combining information from the database, informing me about the column list that should be fulfilled. And I'm grabbing them from the GUI and returning the message and the list of the labels of the columns. So that's why I'm getting the notification with proper names of the fields. So that's about the notification plugin. There is more options, like we can just provide only the string. We can bind the plugin with the closing dialog event. So it's quite useful, I believe. So, okay. That's about notificating users. And the last example is about using doing better reports for the client, because as I said previously with the slides, I have faced requirement that client don't want to leave the page just to see the details of the report. So for this, I have wrote half a year ago my own plugin, Nested Reports, that allows you to make the drill down on the report. And in this particular situation is the implementation, again, on the EMP and depth table. And I just wanted to show you that we can produce the report showing the hierarchy of the data. So, and one important thing is that it's the next version of the nested reports, which will be released soon. For sure, it will be released before the Cascope event. So let's see how it works. So first of all, we have the reports showing the information about the departments, how many workers on what level we have in the structure. So let's see who is working in the research department. So we are having only the manager on the top of the workers. and we can see how many inferiors he has just by clicking on the icon. We are just drilling down through the hierarchy of this department. Of course, it's not only about showing the data in the table-based template. We can produce our own templates using Mustache library, and we can display the data in any HTML template. And in this new release, it's more flexible because you can bind the dialog, for example, close event with the plugin. So when we press the details of the proper employee, we can just switch to the model page with the form on this detailed row. And for example, let's change the city. Let's say he's working in Berlin. When you apply the changes, we are just refreshing the nested report. So that was the answer from me to my client. If you don't want to use master detail report because you are changing the page, you can do this way. And I have to say, it was quite a good idea because the client was satisfied with this. So what I want to tell you is that even if you are not knowing the solution for your problem or requirement from the client, it's really nice to consider using plugins because there are a lot of them and they are ready to use in any time. And even if they have, I don't know, maybe bugs or they need some fixes, we can just hook up with the creator of the plugin and get the instant help because our community is really great. Okay, so honestly, that was all from me. If you have any questions, please feel free to ask about the plugins, about using them in commercial projects. So all depending on you.